Okay. Anyway, welcome to this webinar about closing the sale. It wasn't due to be me giving this webinar until about an hour ago. I got a call asking if I could do it because there was an issue with one of the speakers. The speaker did send me all his slides, and I had to look through them, and it was brilliant. I mean, you're missing out on what would have been a really great webinar. It was all about the psychology of sales, different behaviors that we could look out for, lots of things. But I looked through it, and I can't just use them and steal them. So I think it was Craig was going to be the speaker. Hopefully he'll come back and do it another time. But I'm not just gonna go through his stuff. In terms of what I thought I would do, though, I've been a president for the last 2 years at Society Speakers last year and Croydon Communicators before that. And the whole time was, particularly last year at Society Speakers, we were thinking about how we could grow the club and really push it forward and grow membership. So I thought I'd just talk kind of about what we did and what worked, rather than me actually. I didn't have time to go into the psychology of it, so I'll just say what worked for us, and there might be things you can take away, and hopefully it'll be a discussion as well. And some of you can tell us things that you've done or that you're thinking about doing, and we can discuss them. So in terms of how it'll work, I'll just share my screen. Okay, you can see that. Second, so I can still see this as well. Okay. Right, so yeah, I'm going to talk about what we did at Society Speakers, just some tips and techniques that we found worked, and we did do really well. I'll talk about that a little bit in a second, but things went especially well over the last year at Society, so I'll talk about what we did. Put a clock on. And then I've got a bit of an interactive quiz, so hopefully we'll have some more cameras on by that point, but we're going to have a quiz. I'm going to ask some questions, very, very easy. And hopefully there'll also be, each question will be like a jumping off point for a little discussion about the particular topic that's within that question. So we'll do that. And then at the end of the hour, I think this is just going to be an hour, this session. We'll have questions, and if anyone wants to ask me questions, or I'm sure we've got other people who've got experience in the room that might be able to step up and answer or ask questions. So that's how the hour will work. So I'll start off talking about what we did at Society Speakers last year, and hopefully there'll be some things you can take away from that. Any questions, put them in the chat. It's still, I think I can see everyone at the moment, so feel free to put your hand up, and I'll try and keep an eye on that. Otherwise, put them in the chat, and I know John's keeping an eye on the chat. But any time. Okay, so this was us. This was when I became president at Society Speakers last year, June 2020. We had 18 members, which was, I mean, the minimum really that the Toastmasters want is 20, but we'd always been kind of around the 20, 22, and it dropped off a little bit. We were on 18 at this point last year, but we'd been online a few months, and around half the members just hadn't shown any interest. They hadn't been to any online meetings, so we knew that come September we were going to be losing quite a few of them. And we'd only managed 5 of the 10 club goals, which wasn't the worst thing, especially as we were a fairly small club and we were distinguished. But we wanted to try and push on and get further up the ladder with them as well, because I think the more you're working towards those goals, it's not just a case of a goal for goal's sake. It's actually helping members as well. If you're getting those DCP points and pushing the club forward, then the members are developing as well. That was the main reason we wanted to do that. And we had no venue. We'd been thrown out of our venue just before COVID, or they said they wanted to use it for other things. So we kind of came started the year last year in not the best shape. Luckily, the no venue didn't end up mattering for the whole year, so we didn't have anything to worry about with that. But then, so I'll go through what we did in a second, but this is where we were after a few months. We'd gone from 18 to 24 active members, because we'd lost some at the end of September who hadn't been so active, and we were left with the ones that were kind of coming every week or every 2 weeks. 9 brand new members since the start of that year. We'd won the Smedley Award, the 80/20 Award, and we'd already got 6 DCP points by November, which was 1 more than we'd got in the whole year the year before. So it was going really well. And by the end of the year, We'd had 21 brand new members join across the whole year, which was more than the club had. We were only 18 members when we started, so we're 21, and I think that left us on around 35 members in total. So really, really good year. We were a President's Distinguished Club. We got 9 of the 10 DCP points. Should have been 10 really, but anyway, we got 9, so we were thrilled with that. And we've got many of the initiatives like the Smedley Award and the 80/20, and they really kind of good things to concentrate on and focus the committee's mind and kind of get members involved and get them giving speeches and pushing for new members. So that those initiatives really help. I'm sure there'll be plenty of them this year, and it does help to really focus on achieving them, because it will in the end knock-on effect is you'll make the bigger achievements at the end of the year. And yeah, we were a thriving club, or we still are now. It's obviously only a few weeks since the end of the last Toastmaster year, and we're a thriving club, and we've got members from all over the world, and that might bring issues, which we'll talk about later in terms of how we'll move forward with that. But in where we could have got to over the last year, we'd done as well, and I think surpassed where we hoped to get to. So I'll talk about now what we did, some of the things we did, and some things that some of them might be not so useful in terms of, hopefully we're not going to be online for too much longer, or maybe you're at a club where you're going to do both online and in person, and they will still be of use, but we'll look through them anyway. So the first thing I think I found, because I was very involved with our vice president of membership and the whole committee really in how we could grow the club, because we knew we had a very small number of members and a lot of them were not going to stay once we were online. So we did really want to push for new members, and a lot of you might be in that situation now. But I think something with me and from my feeling when I joined a few years ago was that there never was any pressure on me to join. I think the first time I went along to a meeting, I sat, I did a table topic, which was terrifying, but kind of leaves you quite exhilarated if you do it. And so at the end of the night, I remember thinking, God, I'd like to do this again. I'd probably like to join this club. And I went and spoke to the president. It was at Croydon Communicators. And he said, well, come another few times as a guest, or there's other clubs in Croydon, there's clubs all over London. I was a bit offended he didn't want me as a member, but it was actually really warm, and you could tell that it was more about what I wanted to get out of it and what Toastmasters could do for me and which club was best for me than about just trying to get a member for a member's sake. And I think that's something I wanted to do, and as a committee we wanted to do at Society Speakers last year, which was just not put that pressure on. And I don't think it really works. I've never found Toastmasters being something you can particularly sell to somebody who hasn't already shown kind of an interest themselves. I don't know if any of you've got any thoughts on that, but I mean, how many of you have managed to persuade friends to join Toastmasters? It's not something I see very often. Nobody I know is particularly interested, and other members don't often bring good friends along who join. So I think it is something that comes from within an individual rather than something you can kind of put on them. And again, I was involved in starting a club last year, or the year before last, in Surrey, in Reigate, and we did leaflet drops. We stood on the street outside train stations handing out leaflets and all kinds of things like that. But in the end, the people that came were just people that had done a bit of research. They were interested in developing their speaking skills, and then they'd found us and they'd come along kind of off their own bat. And I'm not sure if we got a single person in who we'd stuffed the leaflet in the hand outside a train station. So I'm not saying those things don't work, but it's I think the point where closing the sale comes is not particularly in going out and being interactive in getting people into the club. It's what you do once they do come to the club, and how the meeting comes across and how the members come across and how organised things are. I think it's all things like that we can work on more maybe than going out and trying to persuade people to come in. And I'd say that's a bit different to having an online presence. You might be on Meetup and Eventbrite and Facebook, anything like that, because that's not so much promotion as being a place where these people who are interested can find you. So I found that first club on Meetup and thought, oh, okay, that sounds interesting. I'll go along and have a look at that tonight. It wasn't that someone put a leaflet in my hand. I was searching and the club was there to be found. So I think in that before meeting, it's just about making sure that we're there to be found, and when we are found, yeah, it's it's nicely presented, and all the information someone might need to come along to a meeting is there, and what we might do, but less focused on pushing it to people. Just let them come and find you. So that's where I am, where we were with Don't Pressure Guests to Join. And I think within the meetings as well, I've been at clubs where you might have 20 members and one guest turns up, and suddenly the whole attention is on this guest, and we'll talk about the meeting as if we're just talking to this one guest, how things work, and there can be too much pressure on them, I think, sometimes, and especially in Zoom, they might kind of think after half an hour, oh, this isn't for me, I don't know whether I want to stay. But at that point, there's so much pressure because they're the only guest. You can kind of see them in a bit of a panic, not knowing what to do. So I think just relax, make sure everything's there, be there to answer questions, give as much information as you can, but never too much pressure on a guest, especially within a meeting. Okay. Did I miss one? Oh, yes. Show off your club identity. This is something I think we kind of lost a little bit over the last year. Clubs, I think before we went online, clubs kind of had their own identity. So I was a member of 3 or 4 different clubs, 4 I think. And each one of them felt different. They had different members. They had kind of just a different kind of feel and culture even within each club. But then we went online, and suddenly you keep seeing the same faces from one club in another club, and it's just not as easy to keep that club identity as it was before. And hopefully, as we move back to some face-to-face meetings, that will come back. But it is something that we can still do online, and I think it differentiates. If we can do it well, it'll to a guest who's thinking about which club to join. If we can differentiate ourselves and show what kind of a club we are, then it helps. And what we did was at the start of each meeting, not every meeting, but sometimes when I'd be doing the President's Welcome, I'd talk about the club and how we used to, we did meet offline, and I had a little presentation which just had some pictures of us socialising in the pub afterwards, and things that I think, there's different reasons why people come to Toastmasters. Sometimes it is just social. And if they see that it's kind of a thriving meeting with friendly members, and they go out and have a drink afterwards or whatever they do afterwards, I think it really will make you stand out from maybe another club where there isn't anything like that. And the other thing we used to always do offline at Society Speakers before I was president was kind of play games at the start of meetings, and it would be, something like a scissors, paper, stone game where everybody in the room would play each other, and we'd end up with one winner, and then we'd move into the meeting proper. It was a warm-up exercise, really. But we tried to keep that up online. We still did the scissors, paper, stone thing. We had a game at the beginning of each meeting, and because that's what we did before, and that you might be a really boring professional club who didn't do anything like that before. So try and keep whatever your culture was. But I think keeping that identity is important, and hopefully, as we do get some face-to-face meetings again, that will come back anyway. And I think also we're probably at a point where even if we don't have meetings now at Society, we're starting to talk about maybe just getting together for a meal or a pub or the park one day, just something over the next few months where those that want to get together, who maybe known each other for a year but never met in person, can do that. And again, if a new guest comes in and they're thinking, how do things work socially at this club, that might be appealing. So just think about what your club identity is, what it was before. Some of you might even know what it was before. But yeah, I think that can help a lot. Okay. Workshop series. So this is basically what I suppose is happening now with these webinars. But we last July we decided that a good way of getting members in, I think it was the VPM's idea, would be to host some workshop sessions. So not just a regular meeting, but a meetings where specialized speakers, mostly Toastmasters we got, but Toastmasters that might focus on humor or table topics or just confidence with speaking. And we started to put on one a month. It wasn't on the night of a regular meeting. It was we met on Wednesdays, the first, second, and fifth, or whatever it is. So we put one in on the other Wednesday, and it was just something that we could promote ourselves, I suppose, as professional speakers, which really is why we're at Toastmasters, what we're moving towards. So we promoted ourselves as public speaking experts, and we were putting on this workshop series, and every month we would have speakers in from all over the world. And of course, mostly we had our own club members, and we had Toastmasters from different clubs around London and internationally. But it was also something that we put in our meetup group and put in Eventbrite, and we had 3 different workshops each month on the same night, and they would vary in what they offered and what the topics were. And some were, I suppose, aimed at Toastmasters, and others would be more general about improving confidence with public speaking. And so we would find we'd get up to 100 people in those things, and as long as we really, we had the sessions, and the sessions were so good and so professionally delivered, and really useful to everyone that was there. But then also we spoke about, this isn't what we do week to week. We have a meeting where we come together and we all just practice. It's very different to this, but this is what we do, and just making sure that guests knew. And we got so many people who just come to see a workshop because there was a particular topic they were interested in, who then came back and watched a regular meeting the following week. And then a certain percentage of them joined the club, and that really did help us grow and kind of grew the profile of the club, and we did really, really well with those. So it's something that even when we go back to face, there would be nothing to stop people doing this in face-to-face meetings in the clubs. It might be a bit more difficult to get speakers, especially the speakers from around the world that we got. But there would be speakers that would come and do workshops. And of course, once we're back to face-to-face, there's no harm in your club hosting an online workshop one night. So there's lots of things you can do that, and not just be kind of stuck in that, okay, well, we only meet first and third Wednesdays and we don't want to interrupt any of our regular agenda for that. Now that we've got this online tool, and we don't need to pay for venues, and we can do these things much more easily. So I think for the last year and moving on going forward, there's lots we can do online to help build our clubs. Okay. New members. So this is something that I don't think is immediately obvious as something that would grow your club, pushing new members to speak. But we realised that over the last 2 years, really, I've noticed it. And I'm sure a lot of you have. You might not have just kind of realised, but you will have seen it happening. Is that a first-time guest who's maybe nervous or just wants to improve their speaking, they don't really respond to a great speaker coming and giving a brilliant speech. I mean, they'll enjoy it, but they'll mostly kind of see that as so far removed from where they are at that point that it's not gonna make them want to join. It's unlikely. But if a new guest sees an icebreaker speech, someone who's maybe been a new guest themselves just 1 week before that, and they see them giving that speech, and they see them nervous, and they see them maybe struggling in certain areas, it's far, far more inspirational to that guest. And I think you're far more likely to see guests joining if you've got new members giving first, second time speeches as often as you possibly can. So I think it's really, really important to once you have a new member, use them as a tool for bringing in more new members. We were lucky in January this year. We got 3 new members in one meeting in the middle of January. And they were all quite keen to get on with their icebreaker speech. So we had a Valentine's theme night where all 3 of them gave their icebreaker speeches. I think we called it the Icebreak Hotel. And so all 3 of them gave their icebreakers. We really pushed it on Meetup and Eventbrite and tried to get more people in. And just from that, we got 3 more people join up that night, and it was a really good night. And then I think even later on, there were still people coming back who'd been that night and seen these 3 speakers. So new speakers really are, a new guest really is inspired by a new speaker. So think as much as you can. Of course, we don't want to push new members too hard, and we don't want to be putting them in positions they don't want to be in. But do think about how we can use them to bring in new members if they're comfortable to speak and ready to speak. And obviously, make a lot of that as maybe if you're president or Toastmaster, make a lot of the fact that this is their first time. Last week they were a guest, just like some of you, and now they're here giving a speech. And this could be you next week. It really seemed to work. I think that was one of the biggest lessons we got over the year. Okay, and last one for the quiz is move fast. I think this is, again, particularly since we went online, a first-time guest could potentially go to 5 or 6 meetings in a day if they wanted to. If they want to find out about Toastmasters, they could certainly go to 5 or 6 in a week. And so your club is going to be more in competition with other clubs than it was before. And maybe when we get back to face, that'll be less so. But generally, there's more competition. Your club needs to stand out from others, certainly whilst we're online. And I think if you're in a club where a guest might really enjoy it and they might think, okay, I want to join, and they send an email, and then they don't hear back from that email for maybe 2 weeks, until often people on committees can think in those 2 weeks kind of between meetings, and they might pick up emails the day of the next meeting, and 2 weeks has gone by. But by that point, either the mood will have gone from the guest, or they'll have found someone else who has replied and they'll have joined that club. So I think it's really important to move fast with the guests, not move fast in terms of you putting pressure on them. But if they respond and they seem keen, I think at the start I said that the president at my club told me to go away and look at other clubs and see what I wanted to do, and that's fine as well. But it was, even that was responsive and moving fast. It was just kind of quite a free, do what you want, but it wasn't a non-response. So I think just be careful that you're not guests aren't waiting for weeks to hear back from you. It might be that someone on your committee is struggling to keep up with replying to emails, whoever's looking after that. And then I think it's important for someone else to stand in and take over and just make sure that the guests are being replied to. And again, it's not just about growing your club at that point. It's about the potential member themselves. And they've taken that step, and it can be a really big step for some people. I think it is for most people who come to Toastmasters, and to take that big step and maybe send an email saying, yes, I'd like to join, and then not hear for a long time, it is really disappointing. So keep on top of that, take the lead, keep things moving fast, make it very easy for guests to join and not give them a bad experience early on. And then once they have joined, don't just let it fall away again then. Really kind of push them, offer them a chance to speak as soon as possible, and then start using it in that push new members way, which I mentioned. Okay, that's that. I was going to move on to the quiz next, but I don't know whether we've got any questions or anything anyone wants to say beforehand, or any cameras that want to go on.
And I would like to make an observation which may be of concern to everybody here.
Yes.
Somebody rather close to me decided to anonymously inquire of almost every single club in District 91. And the majority of those clubs never responded. Now, the way they were contacted was different for different clubs because it depended on what you could find about them, whether it's a Facebook page or their website. But the majority of the clubs did not respond to that inquiry.
Yeah, well, firstly, it's not good. It's what I've just been talking about. It's not a good experience. Secondly, did someone let all these clubs know? Because that would be useful for them. I'm sure with most of them, it's probably just there are so many different ways of getting in touch that people can lose track of these things. But did someone let them know?
They're going to be let know. Yes, they have been let know.
Good.
But I think the issue we have is that we live in this world of our club meetings every 2 weeks, and so we're in this mere mode that we have a meeting, and then we won't think about Toastmasters for 10 days unless we're preparing a speech, and then we'll start thinking about it. Well, I didn't start thinking about our meeting on Monday until yesterday. I started thinking, oh, I've got to do an evaluation. contact the person doing the speech. But of course, if somebody's trying to join your club, they really need a response within 24, 48 hours if they do an inquiry to you. They can't wait. They're not going to, if they, like you said, we're in a competitive environment. If you don't get a response from a particular club when you ask about their next meeting, you're just going to go to another club. And it may be a Toastmasters club. It could be another speakers type, a type of speakers club. People are not going to wait around 2 or 3 weeks for a response.
Yeah. I think even worse is the people that don't just go to another club and just don't bother after that. And I think you get people really, really missing out then on something that can be quite life changing. I think that's the saddest part. But yeah, if with our club last year, the various ways people got in touch, we were most of the committee had access to them. So if an email came through the Toastmasters web request type thing, then there were 2 or 3 of us would get that, and whoever replied would copy in the others. But yeah, it is important to know all the different ways people could get in touch and make sure that those inboxes or whatever it is are being monitored. Facebook, Gmail, anything like that. Someone is kind of getting alerted to it as soon as messages come in. And
Elizabeth,
as I said, if there's a committee member that's not, for whatever reason, and there's lots of reasons, but someone that you might have a VPM that's just only looks at it once a month, then someone else needs to start doing it.
Elizabeth, when you're you are unmuted. Would you like to ask your question?
Yes, I'd be very happy to. Dan, I share your view that one should not pressure new guests to join. I really do think that's true. But how many meetings do you encourage your guests to attend before you start to, should we say, close the sale?
Yeah, we do start with that first meeting when a guest first comes. We really do involve them right from the start. We have that game at the start where we'll encourage them to get involved. We'll have the section, which I know most clubs have, where they'll introduce themselves. We do it just before the break, but they'll have a chance to speak then, and then they'll obviously get a chance if they're interested to do table topics. And then we always speak to them at the end as well to ask them what they thought of the meeting, give them the information they need, ask them to get in touch with either the VPM or, when I was president, me, whichever they preferred to do. Mostly the VPM, obviously. And so there was kind of that. It wasn't pressure, but there were all those routes in were available to them right from the start. And after that, I don't know. I mean, I think I don't really like to call it a technique. I think it was just me being me and our members being our members. But whenever someone did come back, they always got kind of oh, nice to see you again. Well, great to have you back. Really nice. And maybe I might say something like, oh, is it 3 meetings now? It's maybe about time you thought about joining. But just in a fun way, not in a no pressure. We didn't have anything. And I know there was our president the year before me, and he's VP now, and he's been on committee roles for years. But he when he first joined Society Speakers, when he first came, he was a guest for like 9-10 months, maybe even longer, and he used to come every 2 weeks, free cakes, free coffee for nearly a year. And no one put any pressure on him, and eventually he joined, and he's just been, ever since that point, he's just been, as I say, VP, president, VP again, and he just is the club, really. So yeah, we don't have a rule that if someone comes for 3 weeks and then doesn't join, that they can't come anymore, or anything like that, or even the opposite, where we suggest they come for 3 weeks before they join. But that's how we work, and I know other clubs do have other things. And if anyone's got anything, jump in.
I'd love to hear other views, because we're also a bit liberal, but we sort of said 3 to 5 meetings. They should really be indicating whether they want to join or not. But 9 months, I don't think I'm not sure we would let someone come for 9 months. No. Yeah, but I'd be interested to hear other views. What are other people doing?
Rose?
Hi, just responding to Elizabeth's point about maybe giving it up to so many meetings. In my club, we have guests who are already Toastmasters anyway, so maybe that's a difference. So they're already Toastmasters, but they just like to hang out at our club. They come every week or every couple of weeks, and they haven't joined, but we still love having them, and we don't pressure them into joining our club as well. We're just happy to see them there. If one day they want to sign up, that's good. If they don't, it doesn't really bother us. It just adds to the atmosphere within the meeting to have more people around the table. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's where we are with it, and maybe that's a bit different when you're in a room and people are eating your cakes for free. But again, it wasn't something we worried about so much. Okay, anything else? Anyone else? Otherwise, Martin, will you?
Yeah, I was just saying that we have a fairly laid back attitude to people joining, and I think we like to show interest in the guests, but we're not too pushy with them, and I think they pick up on that sort of atmosphere that we're offering. I think we haven't gone down the road of doing the workshop series, so that's obviously quite a big commitment, isn't it? But I think I latched onto your idea about the new members doing speeches and then other people joining on the back of that. I think that's a brilliant idea, and that's certainly something which we could try and use. And I think you've got to keep pushing all the time. I mean, like this July-August period, you can end up with a meeting with about 4 people from the committee and a couple of guests, and you really feel you're strapped to sort of get everything going because there's so many other things going on. And I don't know how you solved that problem with your club. If your attendance drops off, I think we had 2 of our meetings on the Euro 2020 match days. You're just not competing with that kind of thing. It's just impossible.
Yeah, no, that is tough, and we did have those meetings, and I think we were on the day of the England semi-final, so we had something like 9 people there that night, and that was the toughest one of the year. But yeah, it's I suppose as Rose was saying, with having other members from other clubs come often, that's something that I'm a member of a few clubs and I visit far too many clubs really. And so in those situations, I kind of feel like, and especially since we're online and there's people all around the world that I've seen in meetings, and I can reach out to and say, oh, could you come and evaluate tonight? And just getting the agenda together, sometimes that can be a struggle, and then other times you'll put on a workshop and you'll have 100 people there, and it can feel like a completely different place. But yeah, it can take energy sometimes, and it is hard work to keep it going and keep pushing with it. I think with the workshops, one thing I didn't mention as well is it's not just the fact that it's kind of a promotional tool for the club, but we'd have maybe 2 expert speakers coming from somewhere in the world, and then one of our own club members, we'd say, oh, would you like to do half an hour on storytelling or 20 minutes on how to handle a Zoom meeting, and it was brilliant for them as well to kind of have that bigger audience all of a sudden, and I mean obviously certain members didn't feel they were ready for that, but others did. So to have that opportunity for them as well was really, really good. And again, some guests could see that our members were doing that, and they wanted to join and work towards that themselves.
Yeah, and to pick up on your point about the other members from different clubs that Rose mentioned, because that's very often, as you say, they can fill those gaps in your agenda, and if somebody gives a really good evaluation, the guests will look around and say, wow, that's really good. I want to have a go at that. And it really does help your club to keep going. So we certainly welcome other people from different clubs, and there's no pressure to join or anything like that. But we do have some dual members from some of the other Cambridge clubs, so they do come along and then they can give a speech every week instead of every 2 weeks, and that works really well for them. So that was a good thing to do, and we encourage that kind of cross fertilization between the clubs in the local area.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I think one thing I didn't mention, because we don't I think being a central London club and having a really good meetup presence, and people are always looking for things to do in central London, even when we were in quarantine and we were locked down. That we were really lucky in that people just did find us on Meetup and come. But I'd be interested if anybody here's got any kind of techniques they use, because they weren't getting guests through into the meetings, and things they did to try and get guests that worked, because it wasn't a problem we had. Anyone? John?
Well, in that case, this might be a good point for me to plug the District 91 Marketing and Membership TLI, which is happening in a couple of weeks. If you want to learn more about getting people to turn up and to convert them, I'll put the link to the page in the chat for you. You're all welcome to register. To make it a little bit less daunting, we're actually breaking up into 2 2-hour sessions. The first one's more of the theory, and the second one's the practice. So it's the 15th, which is the Sunday, 15th of August, 9:30 to 11:30. And then the second session is on the 22nd, the week later, 9:30 to 11:30. And then for those that get the bug, we're going to be running a 10-week challenge where we're going to walk you through all the different things you can do to get a club full of new members over a 10-week period. So it's in small bite sizes. This is aimed at VPMs, VPPRs, and anybody else in your club who wishes to or would like to join in the membership drive for your club.
Thanks, John.
That's being organised by Diane Richardson, and I'm just the bloke running around putting together the bits of paper for her. But you're all welcome to that. I think it fits in very well with this subject. Dan, the one thing the other observation I would make personally is it's a lot harder to engage with visitors at the moment because we're online and we're in Zoom. When we went to a meeting, I mean, you've been at Epsom Speakers, my club. When I was Sergeant at Arms, I would chat to a guest and then I'd pass them on to another member because I needed to get the room ready. And that member would then talk to them, make sure they got somewhere nice to sit, would then introduce them to the VPM. You could have 3 or 4 people talking to that guest in their first visit. And obviously that's a big task when you're online. It's much harder to do that sort of thing, isn't it? It's much more difficult to interact with somebody when you've just got this Zoom meeting and effectively you really have 2 people talking, 1 to each, and everybody else is watching as they are now.
You just cannot easily have 2 conversations at the same time with Zoom, so that's a massive problem.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's definitely not as easy to do things like that. In some ways, it's easier for the guests, I suppose, to kind of take things in and think about, okay, well, this is a place I can join without having to drive to Epsom every 2 weeks or whatever. And so there are some benefits to it as well. But yeah, we've definitely been missing that kind of one-on-one attention for guests. Hopefully not for too long.
Got a good question there in the chat. What information do you give your guest? Do you have an information pack? And of course, that's an even more interesting question. We're online. So does anyone have anything online that they provide to guests?
Yeah. Hi, Sophia here. Hi. So Tottenham Speakers here. So what we do is we will, when guests come to our meeting, straight afterwards through our Gmail, we've set up a template that kind of says, thanks for coming, a bit more about Toastmasters. You know, we've got it's on a monthly, so it's a £36 one-off and then £13 a month. And then we've got all the details there, and we've got a button for them to just click and join. So that goes out automatically after each guest attend. But we do, like what Dan was saying, we do tell them, look, come along next time, you know, get involved, do a table topic, and just try and get them back as often as possible because they feel like they're part of the team and part of the family. So yeah, it's something we do. It's very easy to set up in Gmail. You can set up the template and it's already there and it's all populated. So perhaps you might want to think about that. So yeah, done speaking.
Yeah, that's good. Another thing that I tried to do and our VPM did was was always so if a guest came and they said they'd come again, you'd ask them at the end of the meeting if they'd like to come again, and you would just remember that and take a note of that, and maybe if you do have their email address or the number, just text them on the day itself, because often people just forget 2 weeks later, especially online where it's less of a commitment and something that you might do and just let kind of drift away. So without putting too much pressure on, just to remind people, oh, we've got our meeting again tonight, it'd be nice to see you there again. Or maybe someone will send one of those contact requests on a Thursday asking if they can come to your next meeting and have the link, and you'll send it to them, but you don't meet till the following Wednesday. So maybe just remembering the following Wednesday just to send them another message saying, oh, just checking you're still good for tonight, looking forward to seeing you. But things like that can just someone might say, oh yeah, I forgot that was on tonight, I'll see you there. So keeping on top of it's difficult, but if you can spread it around the committee and all have roles within that, it's not so bad. Anything else? Anything in the chat, John? I haven't looked.
Yeah, there's a few people talking about their various packs that they have for visitors. My request to those people is if you could email me a copy of an example of your pack, if you'd be happy for that to be shown to everybody else, I'll then put it on the web page with the recording of this this webinar.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's have. I've got a little quiz. Easy questions. Well, easy answers. You see that again? Good. So I'm going to ask one. I'm going to ask people to answer the question, whether your camera's on or off. You don't need your camera on to answer. It's a multiple choice. There are no wrong. Well, there are 2 wrong answers each time, but it's very obvious. So who's going to get the first question? Let's say Venice. Up for the first question?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. What's the difference between a Toastmaster member and a Toastmaster guest? Nothing. Today's guest could be tomorrow's club president. Guests never evaluate in the third person. About £72.50 every 6 months.
I think that the third one, about £72.50 every 6 months.
Okay, that shows the way that you think. But for me, I think today's guest could be tomorrow's president. That's what I went for. But you're right. Financially, that's true as well. Just don't take that today's guest could be tomorrow's president too literally. I've seen clubs that have done that, and it's not doesn't go well. But yeah, is there anybody that kind of will treat guests very differently in a meeting, or anything that anyone wants to talk about there between how they see? I know some clubs don't like to give guest table topics because they've got paying members there, so they don't they want to make sure their members get table topics, and guests are there just to watch. But I don't know if anyone's got any opinions or anything they'd like to talk about there.
Always try and give a guest a table topic, because that's the way they say, oh, okay, I've done that, maybe I can, but we do reserve speeches for members, and so that's a definite rule. So you can't do the speech, but you're welcome to come and we'll give you a table topic, and that will help to bring you forward. And actually the confidence on its own often gives them enough confidence to say, oh, okay, maybe I'll join and I can then give the speeches. So it's so far, but not everything.
Yeah. No, I think table topics is the way in for guests, and for me that's why the session's there, or at least half the reason why the session's there. I know it's for us to all work on our impromptu speaking skills, but it's kind of the lifeblood of a club in terms of getting new members in table topics. And I don't know what the percentage is, but the correlation between a new guest doing a table topic and joining is probably pretty high. So I think it is important.
Anjali?
We do involve our guests in table topic, but we also make sure, because we have a table topic evaluator, that the evaluator does evaluate them nicely, making sure that they pick up on a nice point of what they've said. So guest seems to be happy with that and wants to come back and become members.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, you've got to be careful with the evaluations of her for a new guest, obviously. But yeah, I agree totally. Megan?
Yeah, hi everyone. Just on that point, I think we do very much encourage guests to do a table topics. And actually in the email I send before, when they say that they're going to join, I kind of provide a little bit of an indication on what table topics is to kind of prime them. But we try not to give them a topic that will kind of flabbergast them and make them more nervous than they are, by putting their hand up and putting themselves forward. I don't know if I'm very frozen. Apologies if so.
No, you're fine. Perfect. And yeah, it's a good point. I think, especially online, people have got quite creative sometimes with the table topics, and some of them can be quite tough for members who've been around a long time. So judging that, and maybe if you've got somebody fairly new doing a table topic session, just running through with them and maybe keeping them aware to give easier ones to new guests if they weren't already. But yeah, it's an important point. Mo?
Yeah.
What we tend to do in our club, we do get the experienced members to do the first couple of table topics, and then we get the guests to do a table topic just to give them the experience of actually speaking. So yes, we do run through what it is all about first, and then we get the experienced ones to do a table topic, and then we get the guests involved, and it does help.
Yeah, I agree. That's
yeah, I'd agree with that. Certainly, that's very much what we do. And when you're talking about simple evaluations, if they've done 30 seconds, we pat them on the back figuratively and say, you've done well. You've actually managed to answer this question, and we give them fairly straightforward questions. Absolutely right, because that makes a big difference. You're trying to tailor the table topic to the level that the person is at, and because you don't know, you've got to go down to give them something that's easy enough for them to answer. Very often you can tell with their kind of non-verbal language whether they're actually already fairly confident or whether they're very shy, and you can pitch the question accordingly.
Yeah, we've been doing, I know a few clubs do, but since we went online, we've been doing on the spot immediate evaluations for each topic. So someone will do a topic and then someone will randomly just get asked to evaluate that topic. And occasionally we find guests who are up for that and for them to actually give an evaluation of someone if they're confident enough, they seem to just grow as you're watching them there as well. So that's something to think about. It's a really kind of good and more inclusive way of doing topics evaluations online. Gives everyone more of a chance to speak. Mohammed, Mo, did you have?
So my name is Mohammed Salih. My club is Ace of Clubs, and part of it's basically we are an advanced club. So when we are trying to project ourselves, sometimes we sort of alienate people and saying, "Oh, you should have done level 2." So we changed that approach to. We are an advanced club. We would love you to have to come to our club and see how we do things, so that you can do that in your own clubs. Also, guests, when they come, we do 3 things with them. One is to welcome them like crazy. Secondly is to entertain them. And third is to just increase their confidence. Whether they join or go and visit another club, that's all fine. By us, but I get the feeling, I visit quite a few clubs. Unfortunately, the feeling that we get in clubs is the seriousness of Toastmasters sometimes overspill to discourage people. Of course, we are serious people, we are serious public speakers, but we have to have special treatment for the guests. We have to cheer them, entertain them, and bring their confidence a little bit up so that we continue the engagement with them. So yeah, that's what we do. The rest, the handout and all that is actually secondary, because if we can secure that they had fun and entertained and they are engaged and they picked up something, then yes, whatever mean you want to catch them afterwards, WhatsApp, email, telephone, that will work. So. We just make sure whenever they land in our club, they have good time.
yeah, it's unlikely a guest's going to go away saying they had too much fun. So I think you know, make that's again what we did, make meetings as fun as possible. And I know not all clubs are the same, and some clubs are, you know, more concentrated on the professional kind of really developing their skills and business presentation and that kind of thing. But you can still make that fun, and yeah, I totally agree with all that. Let's have another question. Roger. What should you do if a guest keeps attending meetings but refuses to join? We've already had this. Leave them in the waiting room until they pay up. Use club funds to pay for their membership and tell them they won a raffle. Tell them about the added benefits of being a member.
Oh, by all means, number 3, tell them about the added benefits of being a member.
Definitely,
That's that.
Yeah.
Nobody. People love to buy, they don't like to be sold. So if you can tell them the benefits of being a member of your club and how they're going to grow, and be gentle with them along that way, they will be with you forever.
Yep. That's the correct answer to this one. If anybody's leaving guests in waiting rooms until they pay, that's not a good thing. Anyone got anything on this? Just I know we kind of already touched on it, but anything where they do have guests coming back and what they do to kind of convert them into members? Nope. Okay, well, we already covered it. We'll go to another question. Elizabeth. A guest says they'd love to join, but they don't think they could ever be a good speaker. Do you? Offer them a role on the district leadership team. Tell them it's about their own progress and everyone comes to Toastmasters with different abilities. Ask them to sign a piece of paper and give you $72.50 because you really don't care.
It's got to be
I'm smiling at the options. I mean, we do get guests saying that they don't believe they could ever be a good speaker. And I think the thing to do in such a case is to underscore that point, that one, we're not there to give them an exam. This is all about their own progress and their own development. We are there to help support them and to help them, mentor them, whatever they need from us, just to help them. And definitely one of the things we do when people, you know, we tell them about our mentoring system, and we make sure that different people talk to them to show the different angles they've come from. So I would go for number 2. I think that is the way, that's what we do in our club, and that's what I think would help Toastmasters.
Yes, correct. Well done. Yeah, I think it is a big thing. I've seen so many people who will look and say, oh, I just don't think I can speak as well as everyone else. So you're all such good speakers, and I think the thing is that they're actually, we develop so quickly at Toastmasters. We don't really maybe realize ourselves how much we'll change from the week we came as a guest to a month later when we're a member giving a speech, and we develop so quickly that a guest can come and see someone who's only been there 2 weeks and think, wow, they're so far ahead of me, and they're not. They're literally one meeting ahead. And sometimes it's maybe convincing them of that whatever they think they're seeing and how difficult that might look to them, that really the person that you're impressed by was you last week, and they were saying exactly the same as you are now. And yes, just let them know that it's not, I know we have competitions, but it's not a competition, and it's about measuring yourself against yourself, not other people in the room. Okay. Martin. A young man arrives at an online meeting in a Make America Great Again baseball cap. You fear he could be a Zoom bomber. What do you do? Offer him a role on the district leadership team. Send him a private message demanding he removes the cap or he gets removed. Treat him the same as any other guest until the moment he starts stripping off. Martin.
I think you're going to treat them the same as any other guest initially, but you should have processes in place so that if somebody does Zoom bomb a meeting or become abusive, you can deal with it. and that's down to the Zoom master. And I have had it happen at not a Toastmaster meeting, but another meeting which was which had a slightly political subject, and of course that's always very dangerous. And you know, so you can attract the wrong sort of person. It's perfectly possible. I think what does help is you've got a proper registration. You've got a waiting room so that people don't just come straight into the session. And if you've got somebody who comes into the waiting room with a dodgy email address, I think you probably work out that you need to have some words with that person before you let them into the meeting, that kind of thing. So there are ways of dealing with it. And I think in an online world, you just got to get better at managing those.
Yeah, again, I think it's something that might not seem like it's particularly about membership, but it is about guests and how we view them when they come in. And I know we're so friendly and we're so encouraging and want people to join. And sometimes there are people there that aren't good and are disruptive in the meetings, and judging that quickly. And we didn't have too much this past year at Society Speakers. We did have someone who came in and just kind of kept saying things, just kept interrupting people. And I think we asked him if he could be quiet, and he didn't. So then we put him into the waiting room and just didn't bring him back in. But then there was another time where someone had come in and a guest and was fine, was being quiet and was all fine. But then one of our members said that he'd been private chatting every female in the room, asking for their email address. So again, that was you know, keeping on top of these things, and you want to welcome guests, but it can be more difficult online. It's just thinking about that and what you do in these.
But I think to start with, you need to treat them the same as any other guest until you know that there's some reason why you shouldn't. Because I think if you start off thinking, oh, because that person's got a funny baseball cap, you know, you're automatically showing prejudice, and then that can cause all sorts of issues, and you just get the behavior that you're asking for. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, don't judge on baseball caps. Yeah, thank you. We've got about a minute. Anyone else? We won't do any more questions, but anyone else got anything they'd like to add in the last minute?
I think we just thank you very much, Dan, for taking us through all that. That's been very useful.
Thank you. Okay, back to you, John.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you very much. So now we all know how to get members. And if we don't, we all know there's places we can go to. So the marketing TLI on the 15th, don't forget that. And for those that are confident, of course, the Smedley Awards started today. I don't know how many of you can get into it. I know there's £25 for supplies for those that are the first. But if you could give me 12 hours to get a head start on everybody else, that'll be lovely. There is an advantage of having a club meeting on a Monday. But otherwise, I would very much like to thank Dan for coming in at the last minute. He did a very good job. I'm sure he's available in stand-up very soon, so we can see him again. There will be another webinar next week, which is, I think, got a rather limited group of people in it, so we won't worry about that. But I will get the recordings out to you. I've got all your email addresses because you did register on the way in. I'll let you know, putting up on YouTube. And I look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. I look forward to seeing you in the marketing TLIs. And don't forget, competition time is starting soon as well. So get those volunteers for that as well. And if that is not enough, there's still some Olympics to be enjoyed. So go and get some gold medals, guys. And I will see you all very soon. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.